The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Episode 56 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Today talking with head wrestling coach Tony Robie, fresh off the Hokies' 2 wins over Chattanooga and Central Michigan, as we set the stage, quite literally, Coach Robie, setting the stage for the Moss Arts Duel, a top 10 showdown against Missouri on November 25th. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let you Hokie fans know, tickets still available, $10 right there. Go to Hokiesports.com/wrestling. You'll see it right there. You cannot miss it. You shouldn't miss this event. We'll, again, push this thing here in a minute. But, Coach Robie, recapping the Journeyman Classic, you had a couple dual meet wins. Overall thoughts on how this program has wrestled the first couple weeks of the season?
Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks for sure, and it's really not slowing down much for us. We've got Missouri coming to town, obviously, this weekend, and we've got Thanksgiving going on, and then we depart shortly after that to go to Vegas. So we're in a little bit of a grind right now. But overall, I think, when we look at things from a coaching staff perspective and we evaluate our guys, is we're definitely seeing improvement in a lot of the areas that we've targeted and we've been working on, and so that as a coach makes you feel good. I feel like the guys are buying into what we're preaching and the lifestyle that we talk about living and everything that they need to do to be successful. So I would say overall I'm pretty pleased with how we've progressed since Stanford and through the Hokie Open, then at Journeyman, and then of course this weekend at UTC and against a very good Central Michigan team. I think overall we've been improving, and we've still got a lot of young guys. We started 5 freshmen this weekend. But it's a long road, it's a long season, and we'll continue to try to assess things and improve in the areas that we feel like we need to improve in.
Going back to New York with the Journeyman Collegiate Classic, I touched on this a little bit on a previous episode, but you're going with the individual tournament format, which is a very almost a youth-oriented kind of round robin versus going the duels. And that, what did you see from your team up in New York that you were pleased about in this round robin format?
First off, I really liked the format. I know, it's different, and a lot of fans were kind of unsure on exactly, how things would take place. But it was really good. It allowed us to control the amount of matches that our guys got. I think most of our guys got 3, maybe one guy got 4 matches. And we were able to see Oklahoma State in a lot of places and Lehigh in a lot of places, and those are 2 of the top teams in the country. I don't know if anybody followed the results this weekend, but Oklahoma State put it on Minnesota and Lehigh put it on Michigan. So the competition was fantastic. But, I thought we did a pretty good job overall. I feel like it was kind of a starting point for BC LaPrade to start turning the corner that weekend. And we saw, especially in his last match against Sheets from Oklahoma State, he did a lot of really good things. And I at that particular time, I was hoping that things were starting to click with BC. He's just such a talented guy and such a great athlete with so much potential. So, he's progressed nicely through UTC, and then again last night, obviously, with a huge win. But David McFadden had a nice result and really, had to win a match at the end when things didn't go his way. There were some calls that were very controversial in that match, and he pulled it out right at the end. And again, all we talk about is giving great effort with our guys. And I think if you give great effort and you just come into practice every day trying to get better, good things are going to happen for you. And I think good things are happening for a lot of the guys, especially the guys that have bought in. But, it was a good weekend. It really was. I mean, Andrew Dunn had some good wins. He's starting to figure things out a little bit. Kyle Nordstrom, I think, is starting to realize where he's at and how good he can possibly be. And, we talked about giving guys too much respect, and I think he has a tendency to do that. But, he went out and wrestled Piccanini from Oklahoma State and wrestled him pretty good. But, he can't be happy with just going out there and competing well and just taking a guy like that down. It's about getting your hand raised. So I think it's a process, and the guys have progressed nicely here.
Yeah, and talking Dennis Gustafson, 133. We're talking the same day Scotty Parker beats Cade Brock. Scotty Parker ends up beating Gus in overtime. So the progression there, I mean, I guess the question is that Hokie fans had coming into the season is his weight. I mean, under control this early in the season, 133, it kind of cost him a shot at Nationals, as you were alluding to last episode. But, how's his weight looking? It looks like it's by results. He looks like he's wrestling sharp.
Dennis has done a fantastic job, really, and this is not something that just took place in the last couple weeks. Starting this summer, really making some changes in his lifestyle and his nutrition, and making a commitment to getting down to 133, feeling good at 133. It's not just about making weight, and that's what I think a lot of young guys, we have some young guys right now that are struggling with this. It's, when your focus is on getting your weight down and making weight, you don't get any better at the sport of wrestling. So Dennis has done a fantastic job just making sure that he's put himself in a place where he can continue to improve at wrestling, and I think we're seeing that. Dennis has always been a guy that's we've thought highly of, and he's had some ups and downs, and but I think we're seeing the culmination of a lot of really good work and discipline that he's put in over the course of the last 6 months. I think he was incredibly motivated by not going to the NCAA tournament last year. He knows that he has one more shot at this thing. He's got a great sense of urgency, and his commitment level has been fantastic. And I think we're seeing the results of that now. He's got I think it's obvious that Dennis is a guy that can compete with the best guys in the country, but the next step for him is we've got to be getting our hand raised in those matches, and he's got another tough match coming up this weekend against Missouri, so it's going to be a great challenge for him, and I'm excited to watch him compete.
Again, with the format, you have a couple different pools where you can, as Frank Popolizio likes to say, he likes to put in like, quality, and kind. So you had an opportunity for guys like Hunter Boland, true freshman, to get matches against competitors that are probably in the same boat, or maybe give him an opportunity to get some success here in the early going.
Yeah, I felt like that was important. Hunter actually against Stanford, and we didn't know it until afterward, he had strep throat, so he didn't compete the next day at the Hokie Open, where he would have had an opportunity to wrestle in the freshman-sophomore division. So the following weekend, getting him in there and getting him against guys that are, maybe not at the caliber of a top 15 ranked guy in the country, and allowing him to have some success and start to figure things out, I felt like was really important that weekend, and he did a good job. I mean, Hunter's got his ceiling is very high. I think he's at the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, in terms of where he is in his development in the sport of wrestling. He's got a long ways to go, but to me, that's exciting as a coach, that there's a lot of room for improvement, and his ceiling is he's not even close to his ceiling at this point.
Yeah, the one questionable result that some people were looking at that point in time was Zavatsky's loss to Ryan Price, Lehigh Price coming up. But now we've seen, I guess, in hindsight, Ryan Price just beat Dominic Abinator. So this guy's having a good season, whereas, Zach lost to Nick Rena in the Hokie Open, then beat Bryce Carr in the dual meet. So where were you thinking about Zach's performance right after the Price loss?
I wasn't overly concerned, to be quite honest with you. Zach's in his fourth year at Virginia Tech, and we've seen him beat a lot of really good guys, and I just think it was a matter of kind of tweaking things, figuring things out a little bit, and that's part of the process. And the guys that he lost to were both pretty good guys, and to be quite honest with you, they were probably matches that he let get away from him, where I felt like in both cases he had probably out-wrestled his opponents, and just, he came up on the losing side of things. And that's something that he needs to continue to improve at. So I felt like this weekend was really good for him, beating Carr, who ended up winning the Hokie Open at his weight and was ranked, I think, 10th or 12th in the country. And then last night against Central Michigan, he had a nice win against a ranked guy as well. So Zach, I think, mentally is in a really good place right now, and he understands the scope of the season, and he understands that it's a process. I mean, we've seen him go out to Las Vegas and play second, place third, and then maybe not finish the way he wanted to at the NCAA tournament. So we've got a lot. We're kind of keeping things in perspective in terms of how things are going to progress throughout this course of the season. And to me, it's about getting Zach mentally ready to go, and I feel like mentally he's in a good place right now.
Jumping ahead to the dual meets from this past weekend, head down the road to Chattanooga. Heath Esslinger and his squad, there's there's a tie with some Hokie ties there on the staff as well. But 28-7 was the victory. A couple losses there. We'll just talk about them first. Brent Moore at 141 lost to Mike Pongratz, major decision, and then Justin Lampe over again the freshman Hunter Boland. So where do you need to improve in those two spots? Just first up.
Well, I think starting with Brent, Brent has to make some changes inside the room and outside the room. He's a guy that focuses a lot on making weight and doesn't focus on improving at the sport of wrestling right now. So hopefully these last couple matches have been a wake-up call to him. He obviously if you watch the matches, he obviously needs to get better in the bottom position. He needs to add some offense on his feet. But again, until you buy into that, until you really understand that you're trying to come in and get better at the sport of wrestling every day, that's going to be his challenge. So right now, I think he's got to mature a lot, both with his wrestling and then just his lifestyle and his discipline and everything that goes into being successful in the sport of wrestling. And Brent's a tough guy for sure, and he wants to be good. So he's a freshman, and part of being a freshman is you have some good moments and you have some bad moments. And he hasn't wrestled great, but I'm confident that he's committed to making the changes necessary to help him get better and be more successful here. So it's a long season, and it's all about persevering and grinding through the tough times. And I think Brent will do that for us. And as far as Hunter Boland's concerned, Hunter just needs to get better at wrestling. He needs to add some offense on his feet. There's a lot of little things that I feel like he can do better. And as a coaching staff, we're working with him. I thought he showed improvement just from Friday at UTC and to Sunday in some of the areas that we worked on, and his hand fighting and his positioning. And, he doesn't have a ton of wrestling experience, relatively speaking. He started wrestling in like 5th or 6th grade. So he's still learning and getting better. And again, he's a true freshman, stepping out there and wrestling some guys that have been in Division I wrestling for 4 or 5 years. So it's a challenge, but, Hunter's a competitive guy. Losing doesn't sit well with him. And that's really what I like about him the most is he wants to be good, and if you have that desire, the rest of the things typically fall into place for you.
You've been doing this coaching thing for a long time, and you've dealt with freshmen every single year, just like every coach does. But there's one point that gets driven home about attrition rates and things in college wrestling, and where people get down on themselves is we've got athletes that are at the Division I level. They're losing more in the first month of their college career than they did their entire high school wrestling career. How do you as a coach try to get into their head and say, hey, it's okay, it's going to happen, versus, these are athletes that are used to success. How do you as a coach balance that out with them mentally?
Well, first off, we try to focus on effort and improvement, all the time. And we try not to get too caught up in wins and losses. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to get your hand raised all the time. But I think if you focus too much on that, it does make it difficult and makes it challenging, and it can get overwhelming. So for us, it's all about having the right perspective in terms of what we're focusing on and where we're trying to improve. But we talk about examples all the time. I mean, Ty Walls is a great example of a guy that his true freshman year, he had an opportunity to redshirt, which was probably a good thing for him, but he didn't win one open tournament. So, you look at where he started and then where he finished as a 3-time All-American and had an unbelievable career as a heavyweight here at Virginia Tech. You got to have perspective, and you have to understand that this is a long-term deal. I know I had to wrestle as a true freshman when I went to Edinboro and probably wasn't ready to compete at the Division I level. And I remember at one point, right after Christmas, my record was 6-7. So you just have to be able to persevere and get through it. And you have to understand that if you buy into the process, if you believe in it, you're going to have improvement. And it might not happen overnight, but if you come in and you grind it out every day and you're trying to get better, the results will follow. You got to trust the process.
Moving forward to Central Michigan, coming in ranked 17th here in the early going. Solid performance there, again, winning 8 out of 10. The loss again coming at 141 and 174. But individually, Solomon Shishko picks up a win over All-American Justin Oliver after coming off a loss against Gio Martinez at the Journeyman Classic. What's the deal with Solomon? And talk us through that match a little bit.
That was a big win for Solomon. I still don't think he's shown his best wrestling this year, but it was a big win. I think getting him back on track, it was something to feel good about, something for us to build off of as the coaching staff, and just getting Solomon in a place where he's wrestling his best. And I think if he's wrestling his best, he can wrestle with anybody in the country, and he's a guy that can be wrestling Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening on the podium in Cleveland this year. So he's that good. But he struggled a little bit this year. And for us as coaches, it's about trying to figure it out, tweak things, and making sure mentally that he's in a good place. So to me, that was a big win. It gets us going in the right direction. And, he's got another tough match this weekend, and then we go to Vegas. So he's got a lot of challenges in front of him. But I just like his progression over the course of the last couple of weeks from, that the tough loss at Journeyman. He definitely didn't wrestle well. He knows that. We know that. I think Hokie fans that watch that match know that, and we know what he's capable of. So Solomon's been working hard to get better, and I feel good about where he's at right now.
Jumping up to heavyweight real quick with Andrew Dunn picking up the overtime victory over Matt Stencil. This is a situation where when you're a nationally ranked program, you're going to have a lot of matches that come down to heavyweight. While this match didn't come down to heavyweight, what does it mean for you to see Andrew Dunn win a match like this against a quality team and a guy like Matt Stencil, who is a pretty high name recruit coming out of high school?
It doesn't surprise me. The expectation that we have for Andrew is that he's competing with the best guys in the country. So in order to do that, we've got to be able to go out and get wins against young guys. And for me, I think Andrew's got a lot of talent. He won a lot at the high school level. He's very capable Division I wrestler. So it was a good win. He's a knack for figuring things out late in matches and getting his hand raised and, figuring out how to score that late takedown. But, the challenge for him is he needs to do more. And we can't put ourselves in situations where it's a one takedown match all the time. And, I'm not saying he's ever going to wrestle like Ty Walls and go out there and shoot 20 high crotches a match. But, for us, he needs to continue to improve and continue to work and try to separate himself, I guess is the best way to put it, from the competition. So, that's kind of where we're at with Andrew, and that's the message that's being delivered to him. But he has done a nice job. I mean, he's picked up a lot of good wins through the course of the early part of the season. I think he's buying in, he's believing in himself, and I think his results have kind of shown that.
Alluded to this earlier, BC LaPrade. I joked that he's named after headache powder for a reason, but comes out, beats 15th-ranked Colin Heffernan in sudden victory after picking up a major decision against Chattanooga. And I guess the first question is you'd mentioned he was talented, but what does a win like that over a ranked guy do for the confidence of an athlete when they're getting an opportunity to see time in the starting lineup?
I think it does a lot for him, but I also think it does a lot for the guys in our program, and especially the young guys in our program, to get them to buy into, what we're talking about and the message that we're delivering to these guys on a daily basis. So I think BC has done a really good job making some changes in his wrestling and in his approach, and I think the results have shown, and a lot of it's just between his ears, and he's done a really good job with kind of making some adjustments, and hopefully his success that he had this weekend will continue, and I think it'll help his confidence, but I also will think it will help a lot of our younger guys to understand what it takes to be successful in this sport, and I think if BC continues to do the things that he's been doing, and he's going to have a lot of success, because there's no question. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete. He's a very talented guy. He never wrestled a lot on the national scene when he was in high school, so he's got a lot of room for growth and improvement. I think his leg attacks have gotten significantly better, and we saw that against Heffernan. I mean, he probably should have had a couple more takedowns than he had. He was very close a couple times. So, he's improved tremendously. He's a guy that, we're probably going to need to count on here, and I'm excited about his progression over the course of the last few weeks.
And so I guess some of the question is, knowing the inter-squad results, what's the status of Ryan Blease?
Ryan Blease, he's got a knee injury that he suffered at Journeyman a couple weeks ago. He is slowly coming back. He's still off the mat. He hasn't been able to get back on the mat in terms of live wrestling. So it's nothing. It's not a major injury. It's something that he will come back from relatively soon, and we'll assess that situation when Ryan's able to compete again and kind of see where things are at, and just make a decision based on what's best for the team.
This coming weekend is a big one for Virginia Tech, not just a wrestling program, but the entire athletics department. As there's that school up in Charlottesville when it comes to football that the Hokies play on Friday. And then you got to get Hokie Nation, come back down to Blacksburg, settle in, get comfortable at the Moss Arts Center at 6 p.m. against Missouri. Now, the importance of success on all athletics part of things. I mean, how much do your athletes kind of get amped up after, say the football team has a big win? Is that school spirit athletically kind of infectious throughout the programs from what you've seen?
I think winning's contagious, regardless of where you're at. But for us, we've got to focus on ourselves, and we can't worry a whole heck of a lot about what's going on outside of our program, and kind of live in between the walls of Castle Coliseum over here. But yeah, I think, when you're winning, it does a lot for everybody. It enhances the environment and the excitement level on campus. And, our football team's had a pretty good year. They had one stumble against Georgia Tech, but turned it around this weekend. It was a pretty fun game to watch, and a great way to win. But yeah, I mean, against Missouri, number one, we need to get a lot of people in the stands. We've got about less than 200 tickets left to sell. It's critically important that we sell this event out, and that every seat in that venue has a butt in it, and people are there rooting on the Hokies, because it's going to be a heck of a dual meet against Missouri on Saturday.
We want you to get your tickets there. $10. Again, you can go to Hokiesports.com/wrestling. You'll see the links everywhere to buy these things. Just $10, as Coach Robie said, under 200 left. For those of you that are outside of Southwestern Virginia and need to be able to check this out, and you can't come to the Moss Arts Center, this thing will be streamed through Hokie Vision on ESPN3, or Watch ESPN, whichever way you want to call it. And this top 10 showdown, we'll go weight by weight here, just starting out. I'm looking at it on paper, and again, we know matches aren't wrestled on paper. A lot of swing matches and a lot of places where you might have to mitigate some bonus points. So starting right off the bat, say we start at 125. Barlow McGee is a senior at Missouri, has had a lot of experience, has been close to placing at the Nationals, has not really performed recently like he did when he was a freshman. And he's going to have Nordstrom, who's for all intents and purposes, is looking like he's really getting better each week.
Yeah, it's a huge match. Obviously, Barlow McGee is a talented guy. He's a great athlete. He's explosive. Kyle's going to need to go out there and put his hands on him and slow him down a little bit and try to grind on him. But this is a match, and this is a situation where Kyle's expectation has got to be really high. I mean, if we're going to come out on top, this is a critical match in this dual meet, and we need Kyle to go out there and figure out a way to get his hand raised. But Kyle's improved tremendously over the course of the last few weeks, so it'll be an exciting match. I mean, Kyle's the thing I like about Kyle is he's getting tougher each week. We went down to Tennessee Chattanooga, and he was sick during the day, dry heaving and throwing up, and it forced him to eat and drink a little bit, and then his weight got really high, and he had a hard time getting down the weight. Went out there against a guy that had beaten him at the Hokie Open and really sucked it up, and it was impressive from my standpoint to see him be able to do that. It's something that he's come a long way in that area. So, toughness is going to be a big part of figuring it out on Saturday against Missouri for him too. So, but I like the direction that he's going, and we just need to continue to improve and go in that direction, and I think good things will happen. But it's definitely a key match.
133, John Ernesty of Missouri, the favorite on paper in terms of rankings, but I'm looking at this and believing that Gustafson is probably the favorite, at least in my perspective, based on seeing both of these guys wrestled. Ernesty doesn't score a lot on his feet, but he's very dangerous in some junk type of positions. He's got some spladles. He's got some things that can pin you really quickly. A lot of the points here are going to be scored on the mat versus on their feet, I've got to think.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I just like how Dennis has been wrestling. He's been wrestling really solid. He's limited his mistakes, his leg. I mean, in every position, he's been really good. His top wrestling has been fantastic. His top wrestling has always been good, but I think it's even improved. Defensively, he's sticking with good baseline defense. He's not rolling around like he used to, using his hips a lot more, and the results have been good. So I expect Dennis to go out there and, put out the same effort and the same performance that we've seen from him throughout the course of this season. But Dennis is a fifth-year senior. He's a team leader. He's a guy I think that leads by example. So we're going to need that leadership Saturday night. And like I said, this is a big match too. And there's a lot of swing matches, and it's that's how you determine dual meets.
141 again, where you haven't seen a whole lot of success in the lineup. In Missouri, again, we talked about funky with Ernesty. You don't get any more funky than Jaden Ironman. This guy just scores points in just the weirdest ways, and hard to coach for, and I guess hard to coach against. What do you do? What do you say to Brent Moore when you're going into this match against a guy that's just crazy dangerous?
Well, I think Brent's got to be aware of where he's good, and that's obviously a lot of positions. But Brent Moore, I think, as much as anything, he needs to worry more about himself and his own preparation than the opponent that he's wrestling. And if he can focus on that and he can get himself feeling good, and he can. We know he's capable of a lot more, but he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, I've watched Ironman. I know his dad. His dad was in college at Nebraska. He's about the same age as I am, so this kid's really good, and it's, Brent's got his work cut out for him. There's no question.
Favorite, again, was Solomon Shishko taking on Grant Leith. Leith is a guy who started his career out at Duke, has had some neck injuries, was really solid coming out of high school, but this is one you should be favored. And, again, to mitigate bonus points and pick up bonus points, this is one. Do you see bonus as a possibility, or are you saying, hey, just win the match?
We don't really. I want him to continue to build his lead and put himself in a position to get bonus points. But more than anything, we need to see continued improvement from this past weekend, and we need to see the Solomon Shishko of old continue to emerge. And if he does that, he's capable of beating anybody. He's capable of majoring a lot of guys in the country. So, Sully's got to focus on himself, making sure that he's mentally ready to go when that whistle blows. And I think he did a really good job of that against Central Michigan. And he's going to need to put out the same effort and get on his attacks, stay on his attacks. And, when he's shooting and he's doing a good job getting his hands on guys, getting guys to react, it makes things pretty easy for him because he's great at finishing when he does get to the leg. We just have to get to the leg a little more cleanly than he has been and create more scoring opportunities for ourselves.
Moving to 157, you had mentioned about Nordstrom at 125 about giving his opponents too much respect. How do you make sure that BC LaPrade doesn't do that with Joey LaValle, who was in the NCAA finals last year?
He's just got to go out and wrestle. LaValle's obviously pretty good. He was second to NCAAs. We saw him. Sal Mastriani went to overtime with him in I believe it was the second round of the NCAA tournament last year, and kind of had him on the ropes. And LaValle, had a great tournament. He's a tremendous athlete. He's an explosive guy. But I think BC just, if we can get the same effort out of him that we had this past week, we'll be fine here. And again, he's capable of a lot of things. So I'm interested to see how this match plays out and see how BC competes this weekend.
Yeah, BC, one of 3 Virginia natives in the lineup. And as a sidebar, what's it mean for Hokie fans and the Hokie program to have Virginia natives on the squad? Some of them ranked, and then you got all-stars like Hunter Boland picking Virginia Tech. You've got to draw from the best of the country, but it's also nice to have the best in the state also represent.
It's important for us as a coaching staff and as a program to get the best kids in the state of Virginia. We've done a really good job of that in recent years, I feel like. And, so getting BC, who wasn't a highly touted recruit coming out of high school by any means, but he had come to our camps and we'd seen him work, and we knew he had a lot of potential, and we knew he was a tough guy. So that was the thing we liked most about BC. But yeah, it's important for us to get the best kids in Virginia and continue to have those kids want to come to Virginia Tech, want to be Hokies, and want to be a part of our program. And that starts when they're pretty young, and we're fortunate we get a lot of those kids to come through our camp system, so we get to know them a little bit. They get to know us and our philosophy, and be around our coaches and be around our athletes. And it definitely, when it comes to 2, 3, 4 years down the road, when the recruiting process starts with them, it's a big help for us.
David McFadden, Connor Flynn. Flynn was a Missouri native, went out to West Virginia, transferred back to Missouri. This is a situation where you're going to be in between. He's in between inexperienced athletes, and dual meets also hinge on momentum. What does it mean to have a guy like David McFadden ready there in a duel, a guy who knows how to win, basically in between, sandwiched between some inexperienced freshmen?
Yeah, no, those inexperienced freshmen are wrestling the number 2 and number 5 ranked guys in the country, so they have their work cut out for them. But David McFadden, I think his effort is contagious, and I know our fans love watching him wrestle because he lays it on the line and he cuts it loose, and he's not afraid to go out there and try to score a whole bunch of points. He's not afraid to go out there and try to break guys and lay it on the line. He's not afraid to get tired. So David's, this is obviously a must-win match for us, and it's a situation where hopefully David's in a position where we can get bonus points and add to that team score. But it's critical. I mean, he's a team leader. There's no doubt. I mean, he's only a sophomore, but he's a guy that everybody looks up to on our team. And the great thing about David is he just comes in to get better every day, and he's constantly adding things to his game. He's constantly working with Coach Molinaro, Coach Freyer, picking their brains. If he goes out in a match and something doesn't work for him, or if he has a problem in an area, he comes back and he addresses it right away. So when you have that kind of attitude and you're a student of the sport of wrestling like David is, you tend to get better really fast. So, David's he's gonna fire bullets. I know that much.
Daniel Lewis moves up from 165 to 174, gets the true freshman Hunter Boland. And with respect to Daniel Lewis's proficiency on top, how much time are you going to try to spend on Hunter Boland on peeling the wrist and getting up and out as quickly as you can?
Yeah, there's no doubt. This week we're gonna watch some film on Missouri, and we're gonna try to get real specific and individualize things and work in the areas that we feel like we need to work on to help us win this dual meet. But yeah, Lewis's success speaks for itself. I mean, the guy's a monster. So Hunter's gonna have to stay in there and battle and fight the whole time, and hopefully he can keep himself in position where he can win the match late and go out there and compete. But to me, it's just about how he approaches this match and going out there and wrestling really hard.
Canton Marriott gets the shot at Mizzou against Zach Zavatsky. Marriott, another Missouri kid that's had pretty good success here in the early going in his redshirt freshman year. This is one that you can't look past.
Absolutely not. And it's a spot where Zach needs to, we need him to step up and hopefully get some bonus points here. But he's got a tough opponent. I think the kid won the Lindenwood Open this weekend, which had some pretty good competition. So Zach, coming off two good wins this past weekend, I think has a lot of momentum. He feels good about how he's wrestling and figuring some things out technically that I think have helped him make some adjustments. So he just needs to continue to focus on that and focus on himself. And his leg attacks have gotten really good. I feel like over the course of the last couple of weeks, we need to make sure he finishes clean when he gets to the leg. And, when he gets on top, we need to look for opportunities to turn the guy. His riding is really good, but I do feel like he can add some points. And if he can get a 4-point turn, he can bust matches wide open. And when he gets a lead, he's actually at his best because he's got great reattacks. He's got great go-behinds on his feet. We just need to continue the momentum that he's created for himself this past weekend.
This is going to be one of these situations where potentially the dual meet could hinge on the two best guys in terms of head-to-head matchups. Two-time All-American Willie Miklas, two-time All-American Jared Haught. Miklas coming off a surprising major decision loss to Iowa true freshman Jacob Warner, whereas Jared Haught coming off a pretty solid win. Scotty Boykin probably underranked a lot of places, and then Atenzi, he picked up a big major decision over him. So this is one I didn't know what Willie Miklas was going to look like at this weight class. What are you thinking here? Because this is the same type of scenario that Miklas got injured against Zavatsky last year on a stage against Virginia Tech. He's back. He's got another tough opponent up a weight. What do you tell Jared Haught here? What are you expecting out of Willie Miklas?
Well, Miklas is a dangerous guy. He's good in the top position. He's pretty funky. He's tough to finish on, but I've got a lot of faith in Jared Haught, and I felt like he wrestled fantastic against Central Michigan, and he's at his best when he's putting pressure on guys, and he did a good job of that. So he's got to go out there. He's got to get his hands on Miklas. He's got to move him. He's got to get him reacting. And when he does that and he's moving his feet and he's moving laterally and he's getting his hands on guys, and it's really hard to stay with Jared for 7 minutes. And I think we saw that last night with pretty sure the score was 0-0 at the end of the first period, and he was able to just bust the thing wide open because he applies pressure the entire match. And when you do that and you have that approach, you're going to bust matches wide open in the second and third period, and I think that's what Jared did. So not a lot's going to change there. I mean, he's got to go out there and get on this guy and look for his attacks, and I would like to see him cut it loose a little bit more in the first period and not be afraid to attack his opponent's legs. He's got great leg attacks. So, Jared's, we can count on Jared. We know that much.
And at heavyweight, again, a couple young guys. Austin Myers, Missouri was the only freshman to qualify for the NCAA championships last year at heavyweight, and Andrew Dunn. This one, I've just got to say, based on what I know about both these guys, probably we're looking maybe 4-2 here. This is not going to be a whole lot of points put up.
Yeah, and these guys have a history of wrestling each other. I think they may have wrestled in the Dapper Dan in high school and possibly at the Flow Nationals. I know Andrew wrestled him last year up in Akron at the University Nationals and won a close match. But like you said, I mean, that's the area that we need to continue to progress for Andrew is widening the gap. But he's got he's got technically a lot of things that he can do better. He does have a knack for figuring out how to get his hand raised, and we're going to need him. I mean, this match very well could come down to the heavyweight match, in which case Andrew's going to have to be on his game. So it's huge. There's no question. You got two young guys out there that have a little bit of a history wrestling each other. They know each other well. So I anticipate it's going to be a tight match. It very well could come down to one takedown.
Coach's poll comes out on November 21st, so we do not know what Missouri will be ranked coming in. I'd say it's a pretty good bet that both Virginia Tech and Missouri will be up in the rankings after Lehigh coming up as the 10th-ranked team beat number 4 Michigan. The number 6 Minnesota, just as you mentioned earlier in the show, got trounced by Oklahoma State. So by this point, 6 p.m. on Saturday the 25th, you could be seeing 2 top 5 teams, top 6 teams. It's all on how the votes shake out. But, again, Moss Arts Center, Coach Robie, got to have that sales pitch one more time, man.
Yeah, we need the Hokie Nation to come out and support us on November 25th, 6 o'clock. Missouri is probably the best team that we've wrestled since Penn State came in here the year they won the NCAAs. So as a wrestling fan, you're going to see some really high-level athletes out there. Tons of guys that are ranked in the top 8 in the country are going to step out on the mat, and we need to be able to, have a home mat or a home court advantage going into this thing, and we need people to be loud and supportive, and it's going to be a great dual meet. I'm excited about it. I have a lot of respect for Coach Brian Smith, and what he's done at Missouri has been nothing short of amazing, building that program. He's a guy that I admire a lot, and look forward to competing against the Tigers, and we're going to have to work it out for us. They're a well-coached team. They all wrestle pretty similarly, and it's going to be a great dual meet, probably the marquee dual meet of the year for us, and we're excited about it. But again, we need everybody to come out. We've got less than 200 tickets that need to be sold, so hopefully we'll see you at the Moss Arts Center 6 p.m. on Saturday the 25th.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.